Hey there, everybody. Welcome back with the Purplatypus is the name, and I've got some good news today. I have finally maxed out the affinity for all my characters, and I've married them all. The bad news is I did have to sell my house, so future videos are going to be outside on my phone. But, no, I'm just messing. Today we're talking about Lotta, because I got a whole lot of interest in talking about that character. And once I can remember the button I gotta click. So this is gonna be my first attempt at like a build style video on this game. So just only thing I want to sandbag myself just a little bit here. The only thing I'm gonna say is that this is I'm still learning the game. And although I think I have some good insights and I have a good idea how to build this character, I also think that maybe if I like play the game another 100 hours or another couple weeks and I just have a better idea of how to build it, then I'll update it. But for right now, why am I choosing Lotta first? Why Lotta first, Plat? Why? Well, this currently is a free character that everyone gets access to. So if you go over to the main page here and you go to limited time events or time limited events, totally different thing. Basically, this event's going to get you Lotta. She currently can't be pulled, but you can get your first copy here. And then by going through different modes and stuff and doing this stuff, you're gonna get shards, and I believe you get to max her out in this event. You might even get to max out her weapon as well. That one I don't fully know, but I do believe you get a couple extra copies. It's really going to come down to what's left in 4 days in this other part. But this is the reason why. It's because this is a free character everyone's going to get, and not a story character, but it's just a character that I think is strong and is interesting, and I wanted to kind of do a build video for her. So really quick, let's kind of go over her kit. What does she do? What is her thing? She is basically an ultimate machine. Her job is basically to use her ultimate over and over again. Her passive is not actually incredibly important part of her skill. I think it is reasonable, and I think it'll get better, assuming that they add more characters that could do cold snap. Right now, I think I have every purple character, and I don't think any of them can do cold snap. I think if we go to freeze, in fact, this is a limited banner unit and they don't do cold snap at all, I believe currently. And this is a character that doesn't do cold snap, or she does, but she is herself. So there's probably another legendary that does, but right now, but basically when someone does cold snap, you get wise support. So you get to follow up and do a support attack. It doesn't do that much damage, but it does deal a little bit, get some stability, and it can be triggered up to 2 times per turn. So it is pretty reasonable, but it's not really what her build around is at this point. I'm not considering this when I'm building a team for her or really building her up. So basic attack is basic attack. Her this is an ability you're going to use sometimes. This is her like first ability. It does a low damage AoE kind of blast. It does AoE, it does freeze, and it also will destroy cover, and it'll apply cold snap. So what's good about this is that, so it does 60% damage, which is low, but it does cold snap. I believe when you upgrade this, it goes to 2 turns. Yeah, so it'll go up to 2 turns. So it does 10% damage before moving on the enemy, and then it'll actually do 20%, kind of 10% 2 times. So that's pretty good. So even though the damage is low, this kind of works. And also keep in mind, when she does cold snap, this will trigger her wise support, so she'll do another 50%. So this is actually not as weak of an attack it's not as weak as it looks like of an attack. So it does pretty decent damage, big AoE, destroys cover, does cold snap, does the follow-up attack. Overall, good attack, and you're going to use it semi-regularly, but not all the time. Her second ability is very boring, but very, very good, and really is essential to make her kit work. She fills her skill points. I don't know what we're going to call this, but confectance index does not roll off the tongue. Basically, she fills up her skill points. So, right, this ability here takes 2 skill points, right? You can see this one costs 2. If you come over here, this will basically just fill it up to full, and she grants herself attack up. Now, she doesn't get like an extra turn or anything when she does this, so this is going to eat up your turn when you use it. But it is a quick way to get it all maxed up. And actually, this is kind of designed to be used with her ultimate. So if we come over to the ultimate, this is a very good ability. Selects 1 enemy target within 6 tiles of the user to launch an attack. And it's actually upgrades, so you don't even need to, again, this is one of the few characters I actually think is relevant to consider her max rank because everyone can farm her up to max. It's actually going to be a select tile, which is way better because instead of having to select the target, you can now, it's going to be way easier to hit a lot more characters, right? So AoE freeze damage equal to 100% of attack to all targets within 3 tiles. So that's already a pretty good amount of damage for an AoE attack. Like, it's not, there's obviously single target attacks that do a lot more, but as far as AoE goes, this is good. It also ignores all cover damage reduction, and if it hits 2 targets or more, but at least if it hits in your initial target and a second target, you get extra command. So you get to just use another action. If you exploit their, if they're weak to frost, you get to apply cold snap. And again, that will trigger your own ability to follow up here. Now, one quick note, a pretty big synergy. A lot of people are going to have Suomi. Probably not a coincidence that this is a launch character that a lot of people are going to pull for, and that this is a free-to-play character because she gives you the her ultimate. Basically, it does a lot, but one of the things it does is that it applies weakness to frost. Where does that line? To cleanse taunt from all in. Additionally, applies frost barrier and wintry. I think it's the frost styles. This one, yeah, the frost styles apply a frost weakness. So assuming you have her and you use this, it's actually going to apply that cold snap, because if phase weakness and you give them a frost or freeze weakness, this will always do that. So this damage actually goes up quite a bit, and it gives you extra command. So you get to do another action. So this costs 4, but I think you have a total of 6. So what you could do is you could use amplified courage, and then if you need to, you're kind of pretty flexible here. You could then use cryo rounds if you really want to get more damage in and have a really good damaging turn. Or if you're not trying to burst something down, you're trying for more sustainability, you want more damage over the course of 3 or 4 turns. What you do is you do amplified courage, right? You throw your grenade, you get your extra command, and then when your extra command, you actually just refill your mana, basically, right? You get the attack up buff, you refill your mana, and then the next turn comes around. You could use this every single turn, and as long as there's 2 enemies, you're always going to get the extra command and be able to get your attack up buff. So you basically every turn get to use your ultimate, your good ability. And then on the turn where you decide next turn I don't need to, or you have a different character that can regenerate your mana, you can instead use your amplified courage directly into your cryo rounds to do just a lot of damage. This is a purple character, and I think it's because she's a little simple and one note. A lot of higher rarity characters have a lot of going on, and a lot of their abilities just have these giant text boxes. And even though she has a decent amount of text, this is a relatively simple character, but she is very good, at least for an early game account. This character is actually cracked. So much damage consistency, AoE, has the ability to burst down when needed. Overall has been a fantastic character. Now, there's not a lot of synergy for the freeze stuff, but let's actually go into what you should be building. Her weapon is pretty self-explanatory. She has a dedicated weapon you're going to get in the event. Every 2 points of your Confectus Index consumed, increased damage dealt by 5% up to 20%. The wording of this is a little unclear to me. This implies to me if I use my ultimate that cost 4, that this will bring it up by 10%. It's like how much you consume for the attack you're about to use. I assume this is not over the course of an entire battle. Maybe it is. Maybe after you consume, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20. Maybe after you consume 10. After you consume 8 Indux, this goes up to full. Maybe not. I'm assuming maybe at like level 5, if you get this up, it goes down to for every 1 point. Oh, actually, yeah. So it's got to be for the attack you use, right? Because this 5% goes up to 10%, but the cap stays the same. So this is probably just going to be, because it could be over the course of a turn, because you could use 5 or 6 in a turn very easily, but it's probably just for an individual attack. So it's not like insane, but it gets better and better and better. Because you're using your ultimate every turn, you're basically always just getting a flat damage boost. It also has a trait built into it. You get quick barrier when taking destroying cover. This doesn't come up all the time, but reducing damage taken by 60% once is very good. So her weapon's pretty easy. Now, as far as the attachments, I actually am going for the Ultimate Pursuit 3. There are, like, you could just do something that increases freeze damage by a flat amount, but Ultimate Pursuit seemed a little bit cooler to me, and maybe I'm wrong. but basically increase the damage, healing, and shield effects of your ultimate by 5%, and you gain a stack of something, I guess 1 stack of ultimate pursuit, after each use of an ultimate skill up to a maximum of 4 stacks. So the way this reads to me is that this goes up to 25%, whereas the freeze damage is capped at 20%, but maybe it's more alpha because it just does all 20% at the front. But this starts at 5%, and then it sounds like you gain 4 stacks, and each of those stacks will give you an additional 5%. I haven't had fights last long enough yet. Well, actually, I don't even have the attachments, right? But this is what I'm going for here. The ultimate pursuit set. Is that going to be the best set for her as opposed to just the flat freeze damage? I'm not sure, but being able to use your ultimate every single turn very, very consistently, I think that lends itself pretty well here. This is the early game. I'm not too concerned about the stats. I am prioritizing just dealing damage, as survivability has been less important as opposed to getting damage. So that's going to be how I recommend her equipment. This is stuff I'm not going to get into too much. We will get into these. But as far as this, right now, just pick your favorite, best in slot. We're not going too min-maxy in this situation. As far as the neural helix goes, when you come over here, you have the option. You could pick both of these, but if you're trying to be frugal with your resources, I picked both of them because I just didn't. This is like the first character that I ranked up. I don't think I'm going to do that most of the time, except for my absolute highest tier characters. But increasing your index by 3 at the start of fight is fine, because I actually don't believe she could use her ultimate because it costs 4. I believe you start with 3 at the beginning of the fight. So I actually don't think she could use it. That's the one I got that right away when I got her, so I actually didn't even think about it. But yeah, this one could be incredibly important to her, or just deal an increased freeze damage. Neither of these, I think the extra index is good, but the freeze damage is always nice. But however, when you get to the second one here, when your HP is greater than 50%, reduce AoE damage taken by 20%. Like, that's cool, but if freeze damage is dealt, applies frozen to the target for 2 turns. Again, so whenever you do freeze damage, you apply frozen. You have the ability to do multiple instances of freeze damage in a single turn. And so if frozen gets to 2 stacks, it turns into frigid. So this is going to give you an easy way to trigger frigid, right? Because you could do this, then you hit 2 characters and you get an extra turn. You could immediately hit the same 2 characters again, assuming they're in a close enough spot, and you could apply frigid on 2 characters right out the get-go. That's going to be, again, you're not going to be able to do that multiple turns in a row because you're going to have to use this the next turn and basically take a turn off to maintain that. But you could also just use your ultimate 2 turns in a row as well. So you're definitely going to want to get this top one here. This sounds way more powerful than taking slightly less damage. And then when we get to the later one here, the new effect of cryo rounds, knock back the target by 3 tiles. This is that shotgun blast, boom, where I don't personally like the knockback, but you could take this off, put it on when you need it. I'm not a big fan of 3 tile knockback right now because a lot of my build is based around keeping enemies in range of my other characters so they can do assist attacks. So this just kind of makes that awkward. However, being able to knock things off the edge of a map or something is going to be huge. I would probably take this. Honestly, I'd probably take this and just not use it for now and use 2 of my earlier ones, like use both of these. And then for my third one, I probably wouldn't use either of these. I'd probably use the frozen damage. And then for a rare time where I don't want the 10% damage and I want to knock them back, I'd use this. This one is like fine. But if you have her weapon, it's less good because when you destroy cover, you get quick barrier. But this is after you use a mental adjustment, you gain a stack of quick barrier. This basically means she always has quick barrier up because you're probably going to use this almost every turn. So you're going to get quick barrier every single turn. Again, this is another tanky thing. So she has a lot of like ways to be surprisingly tanky, but there are times it's important against bosses because bosses have very strict rules they're following. So this is a potential thing you could do where, because bosses like, oh, I attacked the closest target. So being able to get quick barrier, being able to take 20% less AoE damage, this stuff is all relevant. So eventually you might want to unlock them all, but if it's going to be too resource intensive, I would hold off for now and prioritize her not as like a really fringe tank, but as a really good AoE damage dealer with a high amount of consistency, and then has the ability to rev it up and just do quite a bit of burst. Her common key is Hunting Trap. 3% attack boost is fine. Increased damage dealt against enemy targets with movement debuffs by 7%. Pretty easy for her to trigger this. A lot of characters have things like movement debuffs. It seems good. Doesn't seem like busted or anything, but seems pretty good. But yes, there we go. That is gonna be pretty much her kit, what she does. You know what, let's quickly talk about units that she's good with. So the best unit that I found that she's good with, there's 2 units that she's exceptionally good with, and then there's not a lot of synergy outside of that yet that I've seen. Suomi is great because she applies that, she basically just applies a frost weakness, meaning that it's going to be really easy for you to get your cold snaps, and when you're getting your cold snaps, you're following up with your attack. So you're just doing more damage in general. So if they're weak to frost or freeze already, Suomi is good on the team because she's a freeze character, but that synergy kind of starts to go away. But she's good with that. Also, the other character I've been using pretty much the most is Purplatypus, Cat Girl. Cat Girl is exceptionally good with her because the Cat Girl's passive chain reaction is basically you perform a follow-up attack when an ally does AoE damage. So if your ally does AoE damage, you will follow it up. So this is AoE damage, right? Boom, boom, boom. You will do this pretty much every turn, and you're always going to get a chain attack reaction, which is just pretty darn good. This does it too. The cryo rounds also does it. And in fact, even her bonds of friendship is a AoE attack, right? This does 50%. You deal AoE physical damage equal to 50%. So it is AoE damage, even though it's single target. However, this doesn't stack. Like if you do an ability like this to do AoE damage, and she'll automatically follow up with this if you did the cold snap, this will only trigger 1 time. It doesn't trigger twice. However, if they have another character that can do cold snap and then it causes her to trigger her AoE, this hasn't been tested because I don't have another character that can do cold snap. But if it's not her turn and I have a second character do cold snap, she follows up with an AoE attack, that might trigger this, which would be really good. But overall, she's been very, very good with this. Just any character that has AoE in their kit is very good. But this isn't a video about her. I'll do one later. Other characters that are good is, like, honestly, there's just a lot of synergy with a lot of stuff in general, but there's not like an inherent synergy with most of the non-freeze characters at this point. Like you could look at, but if you look at freeze, I mean, this is just all there is, right? I'm sure there's going to be more and it'll have more synergy there, but right now as a standalone unit, she's very powerful with her ability to do AoE. If you do happen to pull Suomi, this is a wombo combo. You're always getting cold snap, you're always doing your follow-up attacks, you're doing great AoE damage and exploiting their weaknesses. She's obviously just a house in general. And then I would recommend running Peridia if you have there, because there's some synergy there. But yeah, that as far as the unit goes, that is what their skills do. That is kind of what I recommend building for their gear. That's how I recommend leveling up their neutral Helix. Those are the units I recommend you run with them. And so I think that covers pretty much everything. So guys, if you want to see more videos like this where I kind of go over specific characters and how I think you should use them, let me know. If that's something you're not interested in, then you didn't watch the video and these views will be terrible, and that will be an answer of itself. What does this do? Locked. Oh, you can see the characters you don't have. Okay, well, you know what? Let's take a quick look here. Let's see if any of these are freeze. No, it looks like none of these ones are freeze. So yeah, you're still gonna need to you look very freezy though. Are you sure you're not freezing? You actually don't even have an element. Oh, you gain shock. Okay. All right. Well, that's gonna be it for this one, guys. Thank you very much. Purplatypus is Purplatypus. I'll see you on the flip flops. Bye. On the rise, watch the views go.